Today we're answering the age-old question, should you regear your Wrangler or Gladiator? We've got our 41 two-door here down at Mount Zion Off-Road. We're gonna take you through the ins and outs of when you should regear, how to do it, and walk you through the entire process. This is gonna be a fun video, so let's get started. The first question you're gonna ask yourself is, what is a regear? Obviously, a ton of people on our channel have been asking about doing regears, what should they go with? But really, what is a regear? So I'm here to tell you that a regear is changing the ring and pinion gear in the differential of a solid axle or independent front suspension vehicle. What this does is effectively change the gear ratio or the multiplier that is coming through your engine, transmission, transfer cases if you have it, and then the axle that it is finally going out to the wheels and tires at the hub. A regear is an effective way if you go up larger in tire size or add more weight to help get more of the acceleration, fuel economy, and overall power back into your vehicle. I want to try and help you guys visualize what a regear actually is, because this is not one of those parts that you're going to bolt on that looks great, it looks awesome, it's going to draw a lot of attention. This is inside the differential housing, and in fact, this modification is going to help your Jeep perform better than it does look, and that's why it's often overlooked, because you don't get to see it. It's all stuffed inside there, but when you're driving and that feel to the butt of your seat, that's what makes it all worth it. Basically, when you look inside a conventional differential, a gear ratio, just like so, a gear ratio is the ratio of revolutions per one tire spin. So in common instances, your Jeep may have a 345, 373, 410s commonly found in the Rubicon, or 456 in the Rubicon Extreme Recons. What these are a ratio. So let's start off with a 345 gear ratio. It is not just the numbers 3.45, it is actually 3.45 to 1 revolution. A ratio has to have two figures, and that is the ratio there. So being that it is a ratio, the pinion coming into the differential needs to spin 3.45 times for the ring gear to make 1 revolution, aka a ratio, 3.45 to 1 revolution. Now the ring gear, which is bolted onto the carrier inside of your differential, that entire unit is spinning. What that is connected to are your axle shafts going out to the hub, and for every 1 revolution of the tire, that pinion is spinning 3.45 times. So let's visualize this in terms of a bicycle, because I imagine that most folks watching this video have either rode or understand the concept of a bicycle with gearing. When you're going up a hill on a bicycle with gears, you want to make sure that you are spinning very fast on the pedals, but your tire is going around more slow. So basically, you want to be able to spin 10 times on the pedals, which aka would be the engine in the Jeep scenario. This will help with the amount of torque that you're outputting, put it down to the tires, and make sure that you are not trying to push very hard and going in a higher gear. Now, if you're on a flat surface or a downhill, you want to make the most out of the revolutions. So for every 1 revolution, you want as many revolutions in the back. So that is a way to visualizing. As we go through the video today, you'll see some of the process and how this is done in our 2025 two-door, but effectively, that's all you need to know, is you're changing the ring and pinion in the differential to help your Jeep or other vehicle drive a whole heck of a lot better. You know, obviously we have this thing on 35s. It's not the craziest wheel and tire setup, but I definitely lost a lot of power when I'm daily driving this. So the first thing that we're gonna be doing here is Eric's gonna be pulling wheels and tires off, and then we're gonna be starting the disassembly process of this Jeep. And when it comes down to it, we've got all of the parts laid out here that we're gonna use today. These are just the parts. There's a lot of specialty tools that you use when you are regearing a Jeep. And we're first gonna ask the question, do I even need a regear? The initial question you've got to ask yourself is, did I upgrade or go larger in my tire size? Or did I add more weight to my Jeep vehicle? If the answer is yes to either of those two questions, you may be a good candidate for a regear. If the answer is no to either of those two questions, unless you want more performance or more speed or more fuel economy out of your Jeep, the primary answer for any off-road shop, or in our opinion, the answer is no. Very large incremental changes in tire sizes are going to change the way your Jeep performs and drives, and it's going to be quite noticeable the moment you get it to touch ground and pull it off onto the highway. The second thing that a lot of people forget is that not only if you increase your tire size, you may have added more weight onto your Jeep. If you're an overlander or a rock crawler that is adding on heavy steel bumpers, skid plates, side steps, roof racks, rooftop tents, you may have added a few £100 to your rig. When your Jeep was designed, it was optimized to get the best fuel economy, torque, and power for the factory engine, gear ratio, tire size, and factory weight. That is a common thing that is misinterpreted. If you add a ton of weight, that is going to change the way your Jeep performs, as it is not used to having that amount of weight. In our specific instance, we added a set of 35-inch tires to our 2025 JL and a pretty significant amount of weight by adding custom fabricated front and rear bumpers, as well as steel fender flares. So we added a bit of weight and we increased the tire size. We were the perfect candidate. So if you're starting off with a Jeep Wrangler JL or a Gladiator JT, the first thing you want to figure out is what gear ratio you actually have in your vehicle. Now, you can do this easily by grabbing your VIN number and typing it into a window sticker configurator. Go find a new Jeep, enter your VIN instead of the current VIN, and it will pop up on the window sticker what gear ratio you have. We've got 345 gears in this two-door Sport behind us, but most Jeeps come with 345s, 373s, 410s, and even up to 456, and if you special order it, 488s. If you're anywhere in the 3 ratio, so 345s, 373s, going up to 35s, 37s, or 40s, a regear is a must. We're gonna break down here in a little bit what gear ratio we think is best for each tire size, but we personally went with 488s. Effectively, we are talking for the purpose of this video for the JL and the JT. Obviously, you can go down pretty far down the path of engine, 2-liter, 3.6, eco diesel, 392. What tire size you have is an automatic, is a manual. In this video, we're talking about an automatic, either V6 or a 2-liter turbo JL, just so you guys can kind of get that squared away, because Jeep does do a good job at calculating the factory ratios based upon the engine torque, the engine power, the RPMs, fuel economy, all those other factors. But when you change the tire size, that changes the entire calculation. Our personal recommendation goes against what we did in our Jeep, but normally it's 35s get 456 gears, 37s get 488s, and 40s get 513s if you can fit them into your differential. And that is pretty much the case for automatic transmissions with the 2-liter or the V6. If you change to a manual or a Hemi, it does alter that a little bit. But I think this is a good time because we've interviewed a lot of the guys, including Eric, who is doing the installation on our Jeep, what their choices are. 35s, 37s, and 40s. What have you done the most, or what do you recommend?
I'd start with 456 for the 35s.
Okay.
Potentially stay the same for 37s. Maybe 488s and then 488s and up for 30 or 40s.
For 40s, you have
513 range.
And in like a Dana 30 like this, you'd never do 513s in this. I mean, we're pushing it with 488s, but we're at 35s. All right, we're gonna ask David now, who's doing another regear on a JK.
I mean, yeah, I'd probably just agree with what they said. 456 for the 35s. I'd probably want to go to 488s to go
for
above a
37?
35 to get 37.
Yeah.
And as I said, anything above a 37, new axles.
Yeah, or you're in the 5s. Yeah, 513s.
Yeah.
But JK, what are you doing on this JK? What's this thing getting?
488s.
488s with 30, I don't even know, 35s?
35s.
35s? Okay.
Yeah.
Is this an automatic or a manual?
Auto.
Okay, so we'll have plenty of power out of this thing then.
Oh, yeah.
Let's ask Mike. Same situation, I just asked all the techs out there.
Right.
JL, JT, automatic transmission, 3.6, 2.0, so no diesels, no 392. 35s, 37s, 40s. What's the gear choice for each tire size?
Yeah, okay, so 35s, I would go 456.
Okay.
37s, 488.
Okay.
40s depends on weight.
Yeah.
If you're heavy, like a JT with a lot of weight, the lowest gear ratio possible.
Yeah.
So like 538 if it's available.
If you can fit it in your axles.
If you can physically fit it, yeah.
Or axle upgrade. Like once you get to 40s, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
If you're rocking 40s, you should have 8 lugs and probably 513 or 538.
Okay.
For Wrangler JT,
Wrangler
no matter what,
JT.
automatic.
Automatic, yeah.
35s, 456.
Yep.
37, 488. And anything above that in the 5s.
In the 5s?
For automatic, yeah.
Okay.
If it's a manual, step it up more.
Step it up a little bit more?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ryan.
638.
Like 638s?
Yeah.
Like 729s?
They make, remember that 716 or whatever it was for that tug truck?
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah, bye.
Bye. Now, we went with 488s just to open up the door in the future if we do want to go to a larger tire size. That's a very important point that I missed in the beginning of this, is that when you're selecting to spend a considerable amount of money on a regear, you want to think about your ultimate tire size, and for Jeep guys like us, that's a very hard thing to think of. Typically, we're going, I'm done with 37s, and then out come the 40s on the Jeep. With a regear, you're spending quite a bit, and you want to make sure that you're putting the money in and maybe giving yourself the ability to upgrade in the future while just sacrificing a little bit of fuel economy right now. To actually calculate this out, we were talking with a lot of different formulas, a lot of gear ratio calculators, and we actually had ChatGPT throw together a little calculator for our website. We're going to put this in the info tab. Now, once again, this is not mechanical advice. It is not do these exact gears. It's just a cool way to use a calculator to see what might be optimally best for your Jeep. We figured it works pretty well, and the calculations are solid on the back end, so it was just a little bit of something that you guys can go on there, plug in some numbers, and see what it pops out with. Of course, always consult a very respected shop when you want to do that. And speaking of, let's talk about the process at Mount Zion Off-Road, because these guys absolutely nailed this installation. We were fortunate enough to work with an absolutely awesome shop that is about an hour away from us, who has probably performed thousands of regears onto vehicles. Half of the reason why we had to film a lot of this back here is because they had so much work going on in the bays that they've got. They've got parts in stock, they can bring in things to install, they do crazy builds. They had a Dodge Power Wagon next to us getting, an absolute frame-off restoration. So really cool to be there and work with someone like Eric, who has done, he said, even a few hundred regears himself. But now let's talk about what's loosely involved into doing this, because like Ryan and I told you guys, this is not a cosmetic upgrade, this is a performance upgrade. But some of the steps involved with this, right? Because you want to take this to a shop. This is not just the ability to bolt things onto your Jeep, but the ability to do it with finesse and skill. You wouldn't throw together an engine and just zip all the bolts down and then fire it up. This is the same way. Gears are meshing. There's a lot of very small thousandths of an inch to be calculated. There's shims and a lot going on with this. So really the first step of this is to get the Jeep up in the air, obviously remove the wheels and tires. You have to pull the axle shafts out. So to get the axle shafts off, you're removing the rotors, the calipers, and a couple other bits if you've got a JL, including that front axle disconnect, that little block on the passenger side. There's actually, you have to pull that unit off. There's a little C-clip there that comes off as well, or it's like a little ring that goes around there. But then you can pull your differential covers off. You've got one in the front and one in the back. But after you pull the differential covers off, for some folks in this video, this might be the first time you're actually seeing what is happening. When you're looking at a differential right away, you will see that ring gear, which is facing you almost like this, and then the pinion gear is coming in from the back end of the differential. Now, in all intents and purposes, this is what's spinning the wheels and tires and putting the power from your engine, transmission, transfer case, then drive shafts onto the ground. The first thing you're going to remove is going to be the carrier bearings on both sides. So you're going to remove the bearing caps. There's 4 bolts. Those will come off, and those actually support the axle shafts. So the axle shafts run through those and go into the carrier. That carrier in the middle, what the ring gear bolts to, in our case, is an open carrier. So we have spider gears inside there, and what a spider gear allows the Jeep to do, or any very conventional vehicle, is allows for both tire to spin at different speeds. If you guys take a hard left, your inner tire will turn faster than the outer tire. Spider gears allow that to happen. And in a Rubicon, you would have a locker in there. So the locker is inside there, and that's what locks both of your axle shafts. So when that is engaged, it's going to click in, lock both of the axle shafts together, and make sure that you get power to both tires. But once again, all this has got to come out. So we're going to pull the carrier off, the ring gear gets unbolted from the carrier, and then from the back end, you're going to have to remove the drive shaft and the yoke on the back of the differential, and the pinion can then come out. Obviously, there's a lot of bearings, there's a lot of things going on in between there, but all of that is removed. That's basically what a regear starts as. So they actually use JK
30,
ring and pinion on this because they don't make a new carrier for the upgraded gears, or for the higher, anything over 373 and up, they don't make for the JL Dana 30. This is an oddball, like, not a ton of people regear a sport. I don't,
like
very rare.
We had 3 of them, it was like,
yeah,
man,
you had 3 of them, but
these and boom.
typically no. A lot of Rubicons get regeared, let's just say that. Not a lot of these. And then the Gladiators are nice because they do have the Dana 44s, most of them front and rear. So that's a Rubicon axle for all intents and purposes. Yeah, so unfortunately, guys, here is the difference when you go from a stock 345 pinion here to a 488 pinion. You have to be able to get more teeth onto the ring gear, which more teeth equals less of a size here when it comes to the pinion. 345, 488, massive size difference. That's why some folks say when you gear too high in a small axle, you lose strength, because if you look at that, see how much strength is lost just in the sheer size aspect of it. So 345, 488, much smaller when it comes to the pinion size. Now, when you're going to reinstall everything, we are looking at a brand new ring gear, a brand new pinion, brand new bearings, brand new shims, and a crush washer, and a couple other pieces that go into reinstalling all of this. Now, the reason all of this is so important is when you start seeing shims that are thousandths of an inch thick, that takes a finer amount of detail. You're basically putting shims on either side of the carrier to make sure that your differential, that carrier in the middle, and the ring gear is aligned to the pinion. If you're too far over or too far over this way, it's not gonna mesh up properly, and you're gonna have all sorts of issues going on inside the differential. And in this shot here, you're actually gonna see Eric apply this yellow paint, which I'm sure if you've seen any pictures of a regear, this is to actually check the wear pattern. What's so important about this is to make sure that the ring gear and pinion gear are meshing at the right location. You can either have it too far up, too far down, I believe it's called the toe and the heel of that. And then also you want to make sure that on both the drive side and the coast side, it is lined up in the proper way. This is going to get very technical, but this is why you have a shop like that do it, because they're going to go through, take the shims out, adjust it as needed, and check everything before all the covers get put back on. What I think is really cool is actually to check the lash of it, or check the backlash, is where he's actually taking that differential, that ring gear, and rocking it back and forth, because that little dial indicator is telling you how many thousandths of an inch is acceptable in there. So if it's too much movement in there, it's outside the acceptable range, or if it's too little, it doesn't give it enough room to kind of move around in there. Very technical stuff, but once this is all done, you're gonna put your differential cover back on, clean it up, and refill brand new differential fluid. And one of the most important parts about this installation is to take it easy the first 500 miles. And there is a ton of break-in procedures, driving it for a little bit, letting it cool off for the night, driving it some more, letting it cool off, and then at 500 miles, or as per the recommendation from the manufacturer, drain the differential fluid and reinstall fresh fluid, checking for any big chunks or any visible wear on the inside. Now, while this might not be the most exciting installation to watch, it is extremely technical here. We just think it was really cool that Mount Zion Off-Road gave us the ability to check it out behind the scenes and let us take you guys along for the ride of a regear. It's really important to know that when you're doing all this, it's also a good time if your Jeep is higher in mileage or if you're looking to make other upgrades. Now, when you have all of this apart, it is a great time to check out your differentials, check out other bearings, check out your brakes, perhaps add a locker, which we should have done, because from what Mike said at Mount Zion, you're already there. So a lot of the time, the labor cost is not more involved if you want to make more upgrades while you already have all of this ripped apart. If you guys wanted to upgrade to RCV axle shafts or a bigger brake kit, everything's already unbolted and has to go back on. This might be a good time to do that, or regular maintenance to your Jeep, which I think is a factor that you've got to keep in mind when you're utilizing a shop like this. Ask them for recommendations while they are this deep into an install and see what they recommend doing, or if they have anything that they notice, hey, this bearing might be shot, or your rotors look like they're pretty warped up front. That's a good time to do this, as everything's already ripped apart. So all of that, after it was all said and done, pulling this Jeep out and driving it home, the instant reaction was pretty amazing. I couldn't get onto it full bore because when you're just breaking in a gear set, you're not hammering it down and trying to do burnouts with it, but just pulling out of the parking lot and driving it home, I could already tell the performance aspect of this Jeep had increased tenfold. You might not be able to see it on the outside, but you're definitely going to feel a regear, especially if you've been used to the performance of your stock gears. I've personally been driving that Jeep around for almost 9 to 10 months with the stock gear ratio, and while it performed all right, you just don't know how much you're missing until you do a regear. As Mike would say, at Mount Zion, you get the fun back into your vehicle. And I would 100% agree. If you guys have been driving around for quite some time, you will definitely feel like you've gotten that fun back. So we had a great time there, and I hope you guys really got a lot out of this video. It's definitely a huge thank you to Mount Zion Off-Road for letting us come by, film all of this process, and you guys are going to be seeing a lot more of them on the channel. So if you'd like to have any questions answered about a regear process, or perhaps have something done to your Jeep, please feel free to reach out, and I know they're going to be down below in the comments as well to answer any questions, or perhaps give their feedback to something that you guys might ask down below. We wanted to thank you guys so much for watching. Also, check out the gear ratio calculator. We had some fun with that playing around, and I think it's a pretty effective calculator. Once again, it's just for informational purposes, so consult an authorized shop before you choose the gear ratio, because it's not calculating in weight or anything else like that, or exactly what specific Jeep you have. So it's just for fun on there, and it helps you get into the right kind of aspect or just thought process. So if you don't mind, maybe hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed this content, or drop a comment down below and talk with the audience here at Dirt Road Cred. Until next time though, my name is Matt, Ryan's behind the camera, and we want you to get out there and earn yours.